Nerd Bourbon Film and TV Addiction Hotline. Is everything okay?
Hi, thank you so much for answering. It's been such a long time since I've rewatched one of my favorite movies or TV shows, but today I relapsed.
Hello and welcome back to Nerd Bourbon Relapse, the podcast series where we revisit the series that we love. How are you, Todd?
I don't like how fucking professional that was.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a fucking professional. I'm sorry.
You understand this? This is a garbage podcast.
No, I have ascended beyond you and your trash. I have ascended. I am now an internet radio personality.
Fine, let's get professional with this.
You'll watch my ascension.
Yes.
Todd, we just mere moments ago just got done rewatching Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. How long has it been since you've last seen this movie? Until today?
It's honestly probably about the same. Because I think we talked about this for Episode 1. Is every couple of years I'll rewatch it, so probably about the same amount of time.
Even this one though? You even rewatched this one?
I rewatch them all, and I suffer through this one every time.
Now, I gotta admit, Todd, that I actually enjoyed myself more than I remembered enjoying myself. And I think that's going to be a common theme. I think once you've separated yourself a little bit,
yeah,
you know.
And I think it helped you sending me memes for every scene that we were watching.
The prequel memes, dude. The prequel memes are so good.
Yeah, they're incredible.
You can't beat them. I sent you the prequel memes, and the women and the prequel meme children too. But I don't know. What was your feeling coming out of this? Now that you've relapsed into it.
So, we were talking about it while we were watching. It's just 30% of that movie is good.
Yeah. I was breaking it down as we were watching it, where it's I think the reason that Attack of the Clones is universally regarded as to be the worst movie in the saga is because if you look at the split between, in Phantom Menace, you're okay, half of this movie is cool shit that I want to see with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul and stuff like that, and all this cool good shit, and then the other half is this kind of boring, dumb, politics stuff, right?
Which we kind of came to a conclusion. It's all necessary, but still.
It is necessary. It totally is necessary. But then you come into this, and it's okay, you get 30% of the bad politics stuff. Then you get 30% of the bad, the really bad. Really bad Anakin and Padme relationship stuff.
Oh, God.
And then you get 30% good stuff, really good stuff. I would say that the 30% good stuff that you get in Attack of the Clones is almost enough to save the movie for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. The ending of that movie is the shit that I want to see.
Right. Well, yeah, when we were watching it, it was striking. I was oh man, this is the stuff that we never really got to see before or since, really. Yep. Just cool to see that fight at the very end there with all the Jedi.
Yeah, that's I think it's the only time you really see that many Jedi fighting on screen.
A true Star War, if you will. And then the fight scene with Yoda, that to me is well-paced action done right, you know? And I got to tip my hat a little bit to George Lucas for that, because it's not easy to get that shit right. But it's also just my favorite thing about revisiting these prequels, and it was cool back in the day, but my favorite thing about revisiting them is kind of coming at them with that, I guess, more adult lens, and you and I sitting here talking about Palpatine as a character and stuff like that, and seeing all the foreshadowing and really appreciating it, I guess, in a new way.
What we're doing is we're analyzing it more. We're looking at the Star Wars franchise as a whole of what we remember,
right?
And it's really working out for me, because it's just it's really cool seeing shit. It was fucking the scene with Dooku and Obi-Wan. Motherfucker
Yeah.
legit told him the truth.
Yeah, when he's got Obi-Wan kind of like captured there.
Yeah.
And he's legit. He's not bullshitting Obi-Wan at all. He's telling him straight up everything that's going on. And you almost feel for Dooku in that moment because, like, you know, like he has that moment where he's like, I wish Qui-Gon was with me and shit like that.
Mhm.
And, like, and you know, again, like, he isn't necessarily, like, he truly believes in his cause, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he's a good character. And, you know, he's not just, like, evil for the sake of it, you know? Like, that's one thing that I think is I guess underrated a little bit with Star Wars is how good the villains actually are.
Yeah. That's
Like,
bullshit.
like they're not just like in so many pieces of fiction, like villains are just evil just for the sake of being evil, you know? And here the villains actually have a reason and a texture behind it. And I don't know, like that's something that I've really come to appreciate about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, for any nugget like that, there's an equal and opposite bad one. A really bad one.
Scene of Anakin and Padme rolling in the grass.
That's the most like famously bad scene, I think. But there's so much more where like she's calling him out in front of all the other like senators. And,
Oh, he's just a Padawan learner.
excuse me, milady. Literally says milady. I'm like, Jesus, it's bad. It's so bad. And like the you know, the scene that you always made fun of where he goes back to try to like save his mom, you know.
It wasn't exactly the way I said it, but it's close.
Pretty much.
It's close.
And like I'm sorry. I guess I forgot. His mom's name is Shmi?
Yes.
What? His mom's name is Shmi?
Yes. Yes,
I
it
liked
is.
I liked kind of like, and it was something that we were kind of talking about as we were watching the you know the film and seeing like the exposure of like Jango and Boba Fett and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And like just spitballing basically back and forth about Jango Fett as a character. And like, you know, we talked on the main show, you guys can go back and listen to that. We talked on the main show about my kind of idea of like a Boba Fett movie. And I was like, it got me thinking. I was like, you know, I don't think it's ever been, and I guess somebody will tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's ever been explained how Boba Fett gets the Slave One back. You know, like,
that's the thing is like, is it the same ship, or did he just get?
I think it's the same ship.
That'd be something really interesting to see, like in the Boba Fett movie. That'd be incredible.
It looks like the same ship. I mean, maybe
it's implied that it's the same ship, but it easily could be just the same model of ship.
Maybe, I guess. I don't know. It looks like the same ship to me. But like, no, I you know, looking at it, I'm like, yeah, like that's something that could easily be explored that hasn't really been touched on before.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, it's to this movie's credit that I'm looking at it and I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, well, you know, this is actually giving me ideas for a Boba Fett movie, you know, of all things. Another thing that I want to shout out is the cool Obi-Wan moments that we get in here.
Oh yeah.
Like just getting to see Obi-Wan basically being like a like Jedi Knight like spy.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And doing like undercover work and like public relations and stuff like that. Like Obi-Wan's such a fucking cool character, man. Like he's so cool. And like it's so cool to see him like basically be James Bond for a good chunk of this movie. You know?
I just love like the way he bullshits himself through the conversation on Camino.
Yeah.
Like, oh yes.
Yeah, and seems like so genuine about it. And then the second he steps outside, he's like, "It's all bullshit, masters." It's good, man. And we were even talking, like I mentioned this in the main show too. Going back to Jango Fett for a second, like they could literally have the actor that plays young Boba Fett. He's grown up now, you know.
Yeah, I think he's like in his 30s now.
You could have him play, you know, the sort of teenager, you know, kind of young adult 20s, 30s Boba Fett.
Yeah.
You know, easily. And then like when you if they went with the idea that I pitched you in the main show,
Old man Boba Fett.
and yeah, go to old man Boba Fett basically, and you
just
could
actually
have
get the same dude from that played Django.
right, have the dude that played Jango Fett just straight up playing old Boba Fett. Like that would be so fucking cool.
No, it would be awesome.
My God,
and
that'd
we were
be
talking.
so cool.
We were like, you were basically spitballing the idea of like they could legit just have that shot of like Django getting his head cut off, or just the scene where he's holding the helmet up to his head.
Well, yeah, the scene where like there's that good shot of young Boba Fett after the sort of dust is settled and everybody's kind of left the arena. He runs up and like grabs his father's head and like puts it up against his own.
I did make a joke, and it would be it's kind of funny if his head just fell out of it.
If the head like slid out, like yeah, but no,
Would have ruined the moment, but it would have been funny.
the foreshadowing is very strong in this movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's exciting. Like it's exciting to see, and I really think that a lot of these movies, these prequel movies' strengths rest on that. But this movie in particular, I think, really, again, I think that it's the stuff like that coupled with the stuff that we've never quite seen before. We've never really quite seen, I'm not a big fan of the first, the CGI Yoda or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, God damn it, like they had to do that.
Yeah, that's
to make
the only way they were going to show him like actually fighting.
Right, and to actually see Yoda's like combat capabilities.
Yeah, at like what, it's 800 years old or 600 years old or whatever the fuck he is.
He would have been nearly 800 because he's 800 when he dies.
Yeah, so he had.
He would have been something. 770 basically here, or whatever. So I mean, yeah, it's cool to see. It's cool to see that. That's something that you always want to see from Yoda, and you never really got a chance to because he was a puppet. So
it's if you think about it, Yoda is kind of like one of those like kind of cliches of like an old badass of like you think he's a frail son of a bitch, and then he just drops the cane. I'm like, all right, let's go.
Right, yeah. I mean,
which I love. I kind of enjoy that stereotype usually.
There's several stereotypes. It's these movies play into that.
Oh, yeah.
These movies play into the cliches and stuff like that. I mean, ultimately, George Lucas made these movies for kids, and they don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, the universe itself is a reinvention enough. Mm-hmm. The characters really, several of the characters follow the most basic hero's journey imaginable. And then what I like is that, right at the end there, it kind of like flips its heel a little bit, and we start to see to kind of talk about that. Even though we see all this cringy shit with Anakin and Padme, we do start to see the beginnings of Anakin's descent to the dark side.
Oh yeah, like just the scene of. I don't want to make fun. I don't want to do the meme, but where he killed the women, the children.
I slaughtered them all.
I hate them.
I hate them.
But like, it's just I think that scene, the scene where he's holding his mom, and just that the music is done so well.
My Annie.
But yeah, the music is done so well during that part of like it drops. It starts to drop and just get darker and darker. It's like oof.
That good John Williams score.
Mm-hmm. That shit is
always
too good.
Always delivering, Mr. John Williams. No, but it was it's cool to see like these early stages because coming into even episode 1, obviously that Anakin becomes Darth Vader, and I don't want to toot the horn or beat the dead horse every time we talk about these prequels. Like, it's so cool to see what these things become, but like God damn it, that is the cool thing about these prequels is seeing
it's like it's the thing, like where this is going, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, seeing these first steps that he's sort of taking and his inability to control his emotions, his sheer inability to control his emotions.
It's also interesting if you think about like what if situations of like what would have happened, you know what I mean? Like if Obi-Wan knew the whole story, like you think he would have been able to stop Anakin from like becoming Vader.
And that's the question that haunted Obi-Wan until the day he died,
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what makes it so cool is the possibilities. And I love seeing that stuff. I love that bit at the end where Palpatine is overlooking the clone army,
and they got the Imperial March going,
and it's playing the Imperial March,
Yeah.
and it's just you're seeing the sort of carbon footprint that is eventually going to become the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though it doesn't take this exact shape, you're like, okay, this is this is the sort of birth of the Empire.
Yeah, I even said it like when Jar Jar basically gave Palpatine like the power, to
Right.
like make executive decisions and shit. I'm like, oh, this is some Hitler ass shit right here.
Yeah, it really is. He's addressing the entire room, and he's like, "I will give this power back after the dust is settled." Type shit. Like, no, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. You lying. And no, it's just and like all of his sort of like, all of his plans that are like just underneath the surface. Like he's a really good character in these prequels, and I gotta say, just revisiting these prequels has really elevated my opinion of them. Because I haven't revisited them in years, easily 5-6 years.
It's just a lot of the times it's just like I think the memory of them just get tainted by like just some raw hate, basically.
The discourse about the prequels is just like, oh, the prequels sucked and they ruined my childhood and blah, blah, blah. And like, yeah, they're not as good as the original trilogy, but like, they're doing some really interesting things.
Yeah.
In terms of just being movies.
Yeah.
In terms of being Star Wars movies, like they're not as good as the things that followed, but in terms of like narratively, the things that they're setting up and the the sort of build up and foreshadowing to what is going to happen is just really impressive and really well done.
And I think I have to shout out. I think you shouted out in Phantom Menace, but like just the art direction of the prequels is fantastic.
I love the art of the prequels.
I was talking shit about Dooku's ship at the end. It still looked cool.
Right. Well, yeah, the designs of the ships and like the sort of like more weirdly more modern looking designs.
Yeah.
In the prequels, like the everything's a little more sleek, and it's just kind of funny how like technology didn't advance. In fact, it kind of degraded. Where now, when you're looking at the sequel trilogy that we're currently in, the current canon, like it sort of looks way shittier.
It's basically it's like the Empire kind of like fucked everything up, basically.
Right. The Empire really like ruined the galaxy in a way, And it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see the baby steps of these, and I feel like it's something that because I was young when the prequels were coming out. I was watching these movies as a young man, a young, like a kid and a teenager.
When did Clone Wars come out?
The Clone Wars movie or the TV show?
The movie, Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones must have come out in 2002 or 3.
Damn. So yeah, I was pretty fucking young. Damn.
And I mean, yeah. So I mean, I was, I'm watching these as like a 11, 12, 13-year-old kid.
And think about that. I was like basically 9 type of
right. Shit. And like I didn't really appreciate I love the original trilogy when I was a kid, but I didn't really come into it with the appreciation that I have now. And I'm and I've watched the movies since, and my opinion of them has always been kind of stagnant, I guess, like throughout the years, because like I said, I went through that period of time where like grew up with the original trilogy, prequels were coming out in my kind of young teenage years, and watched them and liked them in the moment, and then it became cool to dislike the prequels.
Yeah, it's like a peer pressure sort of thing. Like, oh, everybody else is hating on this shit. All right,
right. It became cool to like shit on the prequels. So like you jump on that bandwagon, and then I think once I kind of came into my own Star Wars fandom, in my like early 20s or something like that, like revisiting them, and then being like, oh, you know what, these actually aren't bad. And then now that we're doing this show and we're relapsing into them now, I've got nothing but even more appreciation for them. Whereas
they obviously still have their flaws, but you can look past the flaws and see the shit that's actually good.
And I think that's really a perfect way to sum up my feelings about this, having revisited it. Attack of the Clones specifically is like, I really when I first put in that disc, I was like, Todd, you ready for this shit?
Yeah, we both were like, they were like, you ready? It's like, I'm like, not really.
Yeah, and I walked away from it, just with I guess a new respect for it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, is it still the weakest Star Wars movie in my opinion? Yes.
We'll get back to you with that.
Right, but it's ultimately though. I mean, it's,
ultimately, I already know it's going to be the weakest. It is the weakest.
well, and you know, and I ultimately though, upon revisiting it, I really was able to find a lot of diamonds in the rough. You know,
Yeah.
I was able to dig and you know, dig around some of the bullshit, some of the shit that I don't like, and still find quite a few golden nuggets in there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I really, I don't know, I liked it, Todd. You got anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
I think that's about it, man.
All right, thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next time we relapse for our weird rewatch Alcoholics Anonymous-esque thing. Get fucking dunked on. Bye.
See ya.